and do what it does. Um,
All right, y'all. So we are live. Thank y'all for tuning in to Welcome Northwest Austin Council. As you know, every Sunday we do this thing from 6 to 8 p.m. It's just West Side people talking West Side things because there is a lot going on the West Side.
yes,
There's
indeed.
various ways of interacting with our show. We have the Facebook, the YouTube, and the Zoom. If you're on the YouTube or the Facebook, make sure you subscribe so you can keep in tune with the content. You know what we got going on every week. Make sure you share because somebody else want to hear what we got to say as well. If you comment, then we can bring you right into the show directly. Unless you want to come in, you know what I mean? Then we can hook you up with the Zoom, or we could bring you in as a guest via the StreamYard app. And if you like, you doing that because you like us and this content that we provide, and we appreciate that deeply. You know what I mean? Listen, so for me, it's been a good week, man. I didn't do a whole lot, but I'm still in celebration mode, essentially. For those that don't know, I have recently completed my dissertation proposal defense. So I'm about one more step away from becoming a doctor. I have one class remaining this fall, and I have that dissertation to complete. The good news about that dissertation is that it is geared towards the African American community. In fact, it is geared towards the Austin, North Lawndale's, that's North and South, Garfield's, East and West, and Humboldt's, East and West communities of the West Side. And what I'm looking for is for individuals that work in the nonprofit space that also live in those communities. And you must be 17 to 65. And the reason why is because there is this idea within the science that you can develop people's psychological resources to experience hope, optimism, resiliency, and self efficacy. And I'm going to say that one more time because I think we all could utilize some more hope, optimism, resiliency, and self-efficacy. But I've created a training program that allows those constructs to be developed in the nonprofit environment for under-resourced communities like this one. That's very important because even as the APA put it, they have neglected African Americans in the studies of social science to the point that they continue to perpetuate the systems, the racially systemic systems that have kept us at bay for long and have always diminished what we are capable of because they didn't give us the proper attention. So I'm happy to be able, as a black scientist, to be able to utilize science to help develop our community in a positive way. So if you know anybody that lives in those communities I mentioned, Austin, the Humboldt's, the Garfield's, and the Lawndale's, and they live in those communities and they work in a nonprofit in those communities, please let me know so that I can get them involved in this 6 week training program. Man, it's going to be totally beneficial for our community, and I'm just so excited to do it. And I'm looking forward to being able to be an individual that can help our community develop in a positive way. And beyond that, today, prior to the show, I was able to showcase my poetry. I do spoken word for those that don't know. And the individuals that heard me, they had a great time. And I'm looking forward to continue doing some more of that as well. I think our people, what I know of our people is to be very rhythmic and they can catch on to some words so long as you're rapping them. And I got some positive things to say. So I was really happy to be able to bestow some of my art on some people that had never heard it before. And they definitely showed their love for me. So I'm in a good space. I'm looking forward to everything that's to come after this. And with that said, the way we typically start, man, is I go with saying, so what up, Steve? What you got going on?
Oh yeah. Well, first and foremost, look at this weather. What's going on with it? Back and forth, rain, sun, heat. But we're gonna work with it, make it work. Um, just thinking broadly about community and where we're at these days. It's been a little bit on the good side, I want to say on the west side. Things have been kind of going down the right lane. Northwest area been pretty quiet. Not a lot of traumatic things have been happening, which is a great thing. Um, we still kind of in the midst of this whole incident that happened up in what was it?
Highland Park.
Highland Park.
Yeah.
That's still going kind of global and across the country. But what it was odd, I saw a group in DC. I think it was a group, the violence prevention group, and I saw Keena Collins at the rally speaking.
Which one?
It was a violence prevention group. I don't know the name of the group, but they were in DC this week. That
Okay,
just passed.
nice.
And I saw Keena. She spoke a little bit at the rally, and I'm assuming that's the group that she's typically with or has been with. For but I'm not familiar with the group, so that's another thing. As much violence. What I'm trying to get to is as much violence we have in Austin, and she lives in Austin. I don't see her working with this. I don't know who they are. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing in Austin, being that she lives there. Oh, but one thing I did want to bring up was the two individuals that shot and killed the young lady in Oak Park at the gas station.
Yeah.
They apprehended two individuals.
Yeah.
Law enforcement apprehended two individuals.
Yeah, they got them quick.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
They probably still had the car somehow.
Got them quick.
Because they didn't find the car, So
man, sad state of affairs, man. Damn girl was 17, the guy was 21.
Yeah.
And the girl,
and
the girl the one that did the most damage. She the one pulled the pistol out and put it on the girl's neck. End of the life.
Wow. Well,
terrible.
That's something that they did actually caught the individuals, and now we have to see how this pans out. But I don't know. We were supposed to have a guest on. We want to talk about the guest a little bit, then we could kind of open this up.
Yeah, you know what? So what I wanted to do this week was bring one of the guys in that has been working heavily in tech, and he wanted to talk about some resources to try to get more Black people in tech. As we know, this is a technologically advanced society, and if we keep putting off becoming involved in it, we're gonna miss the boat. That boat is already sailing, okay? But we can still catch it. But it's up to us to get more involved the way that we need to. Now, and there are some of us that's already involved, but more of us need to become more mindful of where we are moving as a society. Technology has always outpaced us, and to this point is far outpacing us even faster than it had in the past. And if we want to, get involved now, then we would again catch the boat versus miss the boat. Because look, we always working from a disadvantage. So I wanted to bring the brother in, but the unfortunate is he lives in New York, and so I couldn't get him because we had a time difference. But he did say that next week he may be able to stop on for about 30 minutes or so and at least discuss a little bit about why, again, Black should be in tech and some of the resources available to us. I don't think that him being in New York will stop him from being able to share resources. And I think it's important that we get involved. So looking forward to bringing him on. That being said, we do have somebody that is involved in tech in some way. And we were having a conversation that I kind of wanted to bring into the fold today. And I didn't want people to miss it because I think it was, we could probably have a really great conversation with this gentleman. So I wanted to talk to Dan. Dan, if you're still there on the Zoom, we started to open up about the Fab Lab, man. And so for those that don't know what the Fab Lab is, could we start talking about that a little bit? And you know what, since you're going to be our guest today, you know what I'm saying? Impromptu guest, let people know exactly who you are as well.
Yeah, hey everybody, I'm Dan Meyer. I work for the Museum of Science and Industry here in Chicago. And actually I worked with Steve. I went to school with Steve for many years. We went at night at the Illinois Institute of Technology. We had a wonderful program for people who were working in manufacturing, started by this gentleman named Keith McKee. And somehow we both got under Keith McKee's wing, me and Steve. Mm-hmm. And he kind of mentored us because we were some of the first and Steve taught me a lot through the years, and Keith McKee did. And then when we worked together too, it was a couple of years, about a year we worked together.
Year and a half.
And then the museum, and I don't really know how I ended up at the museum, but there's I run the Fab Lab there, or more actually, I help the team that runs the Fab Lab, I lead the team that runs the Fab Lab. And you might be, what's a Fab Lab, right? What does Fab Lab stands for? It means Fabrication Laboratory. And the first Fab Lab was at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And they had it at the basement of this thing called the Media Center. And the Media Center is kind of where they make near future stuff that's just being released, products and technology, because that's a topic that you're going to have next week as well. And those students, that's like the 1% of the 1%. MIT students, right? It's really hard to get in there. Usually have to be pretty affluent. And so there's a professor there, Neil Gershenfeld. He's like, what if I open up the fabrication technology that the students use at this media center, creating the future? What if I open up to the whole campus? So he created a course called How to Make Almost Anything. And in the Fab Lab in the basement of this big research building, people would come in from all across campus, and it was psychologists, lawyers, all kinds of different people from across MIT campus, which the Center for Vincent Adams is an engineering campus, came to this course. And he's like, whoa, that's pretty diverse as far as students go, right? And the backgrounds they're going into. And the first class was amazing. The things that people made blew Neil's mind. And to this day, he still tells stories about the first things that were made in this course. The one that's my favorite, and I think it might be Neil's favorite too, is one woman who was a psychologist. She had anxiety in public. I sometimes feel like this too, like it could be really noisy and people are yelling and you get overwhelmed and you just want to kind of like yell, shut up, be quiet. You get overwhelmed with all these noises. The museum can be like that, it's pretty noisy. Well, she would really get really anxious about it. So she made this thing on the laser cutter and water jet cutter. It was cut out of felt, which is kind of a weird material to be cutting. Neil had never seen that before. She's like, okay. And then she made this fake belly for herself and had a little door on the front that she could open up out of her shirt. And then she could yell inside this belly when she got really stressed out about being out in public. And then she could close it back up. And she had a 1-minute video showing her in public yelling. You can't really tell what she's doing. She's closing something up. Then she goes back home. She's sitting on her couch. She flips this little belly open. And then a screen comes out of there recording. She made a little electronic box inside of there to record her voice for her screen belly. That's when Neil realized, whoa, I underestimated what people want to make. They can really make something for themselves. And this is a set of equipment that you typically see in a factory that people like me and Steve have to get a degree to use. And this is just regular people, psychologists coming in using these machines and making what they wanted. Then Neil says, hey, I need to see if I should open up one of these in Boston, because MIT's in Cambridge, and Boston's just right across the river. He happened to be doing a sit-in on some project buildings in Boston, and him and his friends were camping there and saying, you cannot build a mall here until you give resources to the community and housing for the people that already live here, plus the mall and everything else, and a Fab Lab.
Right.
And so that was the second Fab Lab. And then the third or fourth one was in a community college to enhance access to this kind of equipment. And really I think the core concept, the way to sum it up is, how do you democratize access to manufacturing technology? And then also what you're talking about, how do you democratize access to computers, cell phones, internet? This is a big discussion we've been having in communities who don't really get access to this stuff, right?
Underserved.
So the Fab Lab network really thinking about now, the next stage is how do we scale this and make sure we're not exclusionary like every other technology that comes along. And so there's a lot of work being done on that because we do not want to just go down that same old road.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about how this can deeply affect and change the way kids see things. So talk about how you integrate the children into this Fab Lab makerspace entity.
Yeah, it took us a few years. I've been at the museum for 10 years doing this work, and then before that I worked for 20 years in manufacturing. The most recent job being a nonprofit manufacturing association before I moved to the museum. So, so this is something me and Steve have been talking about for a very long time. How do we increase access to education of the future of manufacturing and making things? And that's important for our country. That's really what the basis for a country's strength in the world is how you can make things. That's the core base that every economy is pretty much based on in every country. Right. So it's important for that reason. But also, how do we make sure that people have access to this learning so they can get good jobs? I think before we started, we were talking about, I was mentioning, DeAndre was talking to somebody about how you need to get a certain amount of education in order to make a certain amount of money, right? And that's the case. And so we have community college systems where I went to community college. Did you go to community college too, Steve?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Started out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's where we got our first. That's a really good deal, I want to mention to people. Right. The school system doesn't really talk about this. With CPS, you can go to the Chicago City community colleges for free as long as you get a decent grade in the course. Mm-hmm. So I keep repeating that to my students. Mm-hmm. That's very important. Mm-hmm. And if you get a certificate in welding, CNC machining, quality control, blueprint reading, there's a number of them. Mm-hmm. There's 100% job placement when you have that certificate. So that's a nice thing you have access to now. Okay, now we're going to talk about how there's some issues with education. A lot of the machine shops across Illinois and across the country have been mothballed for a couple reasons. They don't have machine shop teachers to teach in them because a lot of the baby boomers who used to do this sort of teaching are now retired. We're not training people to do that work. But still people want to learn how to make things. So the maker movements, Fab Labs, hacker spaces, they all came about over the past, I'd say, 10, 15 years because there was a vacuum of learning how to work with your hands. Mm-hmm. So people created these spaces, and Fab Labs are one of them to kind of fill this vacuum up. And they're remixed. They're a lot higher tech, in my opinion, than a traditional industrial education like me and Steve got, where we took machine shop and we had to file blocks of metal. It's kind of old school, some of the way we learned. And that just doesn't fly anymore. We got to update that. So that's a good thing. How we serve students took us a little while. We had kids from different CPS schools being bussed in from all around the Chicago regional area, and sometimes it'd taken an hour to get to the museum. Then we realized we need to focus in a 3 to 6 mile radius. Then stuff started happening. Then we started going to lunchtime at the surrounding schools around the museum, like in Englewood, areas like that. And the first thing we got, though, was when we went to the principals, they're like, "Oh, you're from Museum Science Center? Oh, glad you're here. Will you just disappear after you finish this program?" So we had to build trust first, which we learned that we had disappeared in the past. So we said, we will not disappear. We'd like to come at lunchtime, and we'd like to invite your students to come to the museum on Saturday, all day Saturday, and learn about the latest design, technology, computer technology, and manufacturing technology through our Fab Lab program. So the teachers, the principal, and the students at lunchtime got to see these machines. They're small. We bring them to the lunchroom, and the students would self-select to come over and look at it. Some got really into it. Some started making things right there. And then we'd have to get them over to the museum, which that's a whole other thing. Is the museum's kind of like this big castle-like building, right? Right. From the World's Fair. So it's kind of intimidating to even come near. So we had to text the students, say, yeah, you're in the right place. Come around. Here's where you got to enter and get them in there. And then once we got a few of them in, then they start bringing their friends, and then it started kind of snowballing. And I was really lucky at the time. I had a employee, Gerard Israel, who grew up in Inglewood. He was the coordinator for the program, and we took some training about trauma, things like that. We took some anti-racist training as well, and then using that basis, he built, and he also had a lot of experience with this one himself firsthand and through his education, create a safe space for the students to hang out. And once they felt safe, then they could start learning about all the technology, 3D printing, designing in 2D and 3D and CAD, then CAM, which is computer aided manufacturing. Then they send it to the 3D printer, send it to the milling machines, send it to the vinyl cutters to make T-shirts and stickers, send it to the digital embroidery machines to make designs for fashion, and then it just took off. It was so exciting. This was in 2018 and 2019 where we finally figured out how to get our stride. And I started in 2011. I was hired to get the space utilized in 2011. And in 2011 was me and an intern from, I forget the neighborhood he was from, but him and I ran it. We had already about 300 people that first year. By the time we hit 2019, we had over 15,000 people design and make something in the Fab Lab of the Museum of Science and Industry. And we had a cohort of 40 local high school students, plus their brothers and sisters sometimes, and even some toddlers coming to the Saturday program. And we only had 20 computers and 20 machines. So everybody was sharing. Not all 40 would show up at the same time, but it was really exciting. Then we got hit by the pandemic and the museum closed down. We lost a lot of our employees. I won't say in there how many, but it was significant. We recovered from that, and now we're rebuilding our youth program. But we learned a lot during that time. And I had 2 students last summer that I did building computers and drone flying. They were the last 2 students. They were the 2 students that responded to me when I reached out to the students from 2019. Most of them were seniors. So we'll relaunch that program soon. I'm hoping in the fall. But that's how we use the Fab Lab for reaching out to the community. We do lots of other stuff too, like training CPS teachers. We help the Chicago Public Library start their maker labs they have and select their equipment and train their staff. But the main thing I think we want to focus on is how do we serve the community. We work with Bethel Blue Life, which is in the West Side. We were working on starting a maker space there. Anytime somebody needs help starting a maker space, we can help. I like to listen to what the community wants, and then what do you want to do? Are you sure you want a Fab Lab to get done what you're doing? And then if you do still, then here's a set of equipment that I suggest best bang for your buck, investing in this Fab Lab equipment. And really the goal would be to have in every neighborhood in Chicago a Fab Lab. And then with some bigger Fab Labs called supernodes that could support those smaller Fab Labs is kind of the idea. And then that democratizes the access to good jobs in this manufacturing technology field. Graphic design is a little more broadly applicable than just what me and Steve learned, which is specifically heavy manufacturing. The Fab Lab's neat because you can do computer coding, robotics. You can go on to university, you can go to community college, you can go get a certificate, you can do graphic design. You know, there's more applicability to this technology in a broader range of stuff, which I think is a better remix than just focusing so especially on one narrow topic like me and Steve did.
Yeah, it opens up a lot of opportunities from actually operating and programming and maintaining and testing, and I mean that's you can do it all just by, and see we didn't have that kind of inroads when we were younger. Actually, the truth is we did, and it was going to the Museum of Science and Industry and seeing these opportunities. That's where I got mine from. But they didn't have a Fab Lab, nor did they have a makerspace back then. It was just things that said, this is what the future will look like. We will have these, I remember going to the museum back in the early 70s, and they had the phone that you could actually talk to people in your hand, like the Star Trek, what is it called? I forgot the name of it. But they had this. They said this will be the future. This was in the early 70s. So I'm thinking, wow, we're going to be making and developing phones that you can walk around, cordless phones or wireless phones. And it piqued my interest enough to get into engineering and manufacturing for almost 30 years. And I'm sure it piqued your interest also, Dan. When you said you don't know how you ended up there, you remember telling me the story when you were a kid. That was one of your goals, or not goals, but ideal jobs.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it when I got the job.
So Dan,
it was amazing, and because both me and Steve have experience, we like working with our hands and turning knobs and seeing gears move around and stuff like that was something that we were like when we were young.
Right.
So my mom would bring me there into the green stairwell, and she said she couldn't get me out of there because I just kept on turning these knobs and watching the gears go around and stuff like that.
Is it still there?
So yeah, you're right. The museum's always been hands-on. We've been lucky to have that in Chicago, but this is even deeper hands-on with technology and making things.
I wish you had something you could show them, give them an idea of what, so they won't think it's too far blown out of the realm of a young person coming into the Fab Lab and being able to pick it up within a week, to start understanding, how to transfer files and how to digitize images and 3D images and things of that nature. One thing I want you to bring up, talk about the new CEO. Is she the
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
we have a new CEO of the Museum of Science and Industry. So her name is Chevy Humphrey. She originally is from Texas, and she moved to Arizona, and she ran the Arizona Science Center there for, I think, 10, 15 years. She worked her way up from cashier all the way up to CEO. That's all. Isn't that amazing? So she had every job there in that museum.
Wow.
And she visited with her boss about a year after she started at the Arizona Science Center. She came to the Museum of Science and Industry, and she told her boss then that she was going to have a job there one day. And the boss was like, hold on a minute, we want to keep you for a while, Arizona Science Center. But that's okay, you can have that as a goal.
Right.
So she made it, and she's an African-American woman. It's really awesome. On the south side of Chicago, in the neighborhoods where the museum's located, that we have a black woman leading us.
You took me to see her a couple weeks ago, and she had just left the office of the building. But she has an amazing sized office. Believe me, it's like a whole suite, and overlooking the lake, and really nice presentation. Really nice presentation. But Dan, do you have anything? Go ahead.
The president's office is amazing, and it's been the president's office for, I don't know, probably over 50 years. So it has this long legacy of multiple presidents using it. So it's really cool. Yeah, it's a beautiful office.
For sure. Art Deco. What were those, doors or windows or something? I could see it. I mean, it was really nice.
The windows are cast aluminum gratings all around the museum. It's the museum's. I still find places I've never seen before, and I've worked there for 11 years.
Yeah.
It's just this mystery, especially when you have access behind the scenes. It's got 5 acres of display space.
Man.
A lot of people don't know that. It really takes about 2 days to see it all. Chicagoans know that because they've gone in there.
Yeah.
And they're like, whoa. And then they come back and they're like, wow, I haven't seen this before. They understand that, but people from out of town don't realize how big of a museum it is.
It's pretty vast. Hey, do you have anything you can give them an idea, like show on the screen of what's going on in the Fab Lab or the Makerspace? I remember coming to the Makerspace and we made some type of wristband with I think it had LEDs on it or something. I can't remember.
Oh yeah, that was Makers United and Make Shop we did. Those are really big scale. But yeah, let's talk about the scale things you can do because I think people might be interested in that. Should I share my screen? Is that possible?
Sure, you can. Can you want to bring them in through the you want to come in through the what thing with
StreamYard?
Yeah, would everybody be able to see?
I don't know if you can share a screen.
Go ahead, try to see if you can, or if we have.
You give them both privileges so you can show a screen on
I'll give you
StreamYard.
Switch it to.
It'll stop the screen sharing to somebody else. Okay, let's see here. All right, let's make sure I got the right thing up here. There we go. All right. Let's see here. I think it's this one.
Okay, there we go.
Okay. You see the Museum of Science and Wanger Family Fab Lab?
Yeah, can everyone else see it?
Yeah, the people on the Zoom can see
They
it.
can. Okay.
Let me see
Okay,
if I
cool.
can
And I'll
do it.
try to be descriptive for the people on YouTube and things like that. So, everybody knows the Museum of Science and Industry from Chicago. If you don't, come visit. And the Wanger family is a local family, Ralph Wanger, Len Wanger, and his sons, and his family. And they gave us kind of the first 3 years of money. That's a simplification. But they're big supporters to get the Fab Lab restarted because it wasn't super busy. So we're really appreciative of the Wanger family. And we have workshops. So the public workshops, right now we have summer camp. So we're right in the middle of that right now. If you have any children that would like to sign up for summer camps, you do that. But once the summer's over, you can come back and you can do our workshops. Let's see what we have for workshops. Okay. Yep, there. We'll resume in fall. Let's see if we got some pictures here. Oh, there's MSI camp information. Anyway, I'll have to describe to you what let's pull up a 3D printing video. That'll be kind of cool.
Right.
So you might have heard about 3D printers online. That's one of the most popular things. 3D printer, dance, MSI, Chicago. Let's just pull up the video of 3D printer. There it is. This is kind of a cool video. I'll get that playing and I'll talk about it. So we have hour-long workshops in digital design and fabrication. And the most popular one is an hour-long workshop that we used to run every day the museum was open when we had a bigger staff before the pandemic. We'll return to that someday. But a couple days a week now during the school year, we have this workshop where you can come in and you can learn. You don't have to even know how to use the computer. We'll teach you how to use the computer. We have touchscreen and mouse usage. My staff has run thousands of these workshops over the years. And the 3D printer is sort of like a hot glue gun that's controlled by a computer. And if you imagine you took hot glue and put it on a plate, an air plate, you just kept making shapes, little circles maybe, you could eventually make an object. That's how the 3D printer works. And we talk about how it works. And then we have you use a program called Sculptress, which is like sculpting clay with your hands. And you touch the screen or use the mouse and you form a little creature. We let you make mistakes, because failure and iteration, it's really not failure, it's just making new versions. Make a couple versions. It's so different than school where you get an F or an A. You just keep on iterating until you're happy. And then what's amazing is in about 8 minutes, people will finish the creature. We've learned that over time. That's how much time after they've been trained how to design a little bit. So it takes about a half hour, and then 8 minutes to design a creature. Then we slice the creature into layers, like we can see here on the screen. You can see it, print it one layer at a time, and then you get to sit there and watch the printer print your item, which takes about 15 minutes. And then sometimes the printer doesn't work right, the 3D printer. So we leave another 15-minute buffer in case you got to reprint your creature. Sometimes things don't work exactly right. Then you get to keep the creature that didn't work so well plus the one that worked right. So on the screen, it's really set up 1,000 times there, and they're going back and forth. And that's the printer there. So that's our basic workshop. That's the beginning of everything, the 1 hour 3D printer workshop. Then we have 1 hour workshops on vinyl cutting, making stickers. We have 1 hour workshops on making your own keychain, laser cut acrylic where it etches and cuts it. The summer camps are interesting because the campers that take that camp, they go from Monday through Friday, and on Monday they might not know very much about digital fabrication. By then, we have a belt system like karate. You go from white belt to black belt, different technologies. Some of them are black belts and they're teaching each other. We kind of step back and let them run the lab themselves. They get access to a 3D printer, a vinyl cutter, digital embroidery machine, and a computer at their little workstations. And there's between 15 and 20 students in each camp. We have 2 camps running simultaneously. So beyond the direct community support of high school students and other things I talked about earlier, during the school year, anyone can come in and learn how to do 3D printing and other technologies to an experience.
Let's tell the
And
audience.
if you want,
Okay, go ahead, continue.
if you want to contact me, I'm dan.meyer@msichicago.org, which should be dan.meyer.msichicago.org. And I would be happy to get you into the workshops if you contact me and just mention the show.
Well, I was going to say, let everybody know that the objects that you make are not relegated to the fixed, little toys or images. You can design and make anything. I mean, I remember the time when I came, we did a silhouette, not a silhouette, but a sculpted version of my head. And we printed my whole face and head on a 3D printer the size of, what was it, as big as a 50-cent piece. But you can design anything that you may think you want or that may be needed, and it would literally make it out of what they call a plastic resin or.
Yeah, it's in our case it's polylactic acid, PLA. It's plastic made out of corn in the United States. So we get corn, we make it into a plastic, and then it gets put into a filament that's sort of like a weed whacker, like you have in your yard where you weed whack stuff. Right. A filament like that, and it melts it like a hot glue gun, a tiny little hot glue gun, and it extrudes it out in layers and melts it together. Me and Steve have been around 3D printers our whole life.
30, 40 years.
Watch this machine run. It is just fascinating watching.
Yeah, and they've come a long way.
TV all the time, and then you be able to see in real life.
Yeah, I was just saying how they've come such a long way from the early days of stereolithography in the 80s and working with the what was it, like the graphite, the resins and the graphite.
Yeah.
The
laser would shoot into it. The machine cost like $500,000.
Yeah, it was
now they cost $300.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy. That's why we can afford so many.
Yeah.
When we have a workshop full of 10 to 15 guests or patrons, we call patrons guests, as our guests at the museum.
Hey Dan, you know what? Dan, when I met you, the first thing that I thought about is how could we utilize the Fab Lab to improve the community? And Steve and I, we're both about sustainability. And I always tell people that the Fab Lab allows us to repurpose items. Is that true or false? Because I don't want to say that it's true.
Yeah, that is true. So one of the most successful Fab Labs is in Barcelona, Spain. That's what's nice about the Fab Lab network is you get to see a lot of other places. There's also a Fab Lab in South Africa. So let's talk about those two. The Barcelona, Spain Fab Lab, Barcelona is cut off from raw materials. It's kind of like this weird isolated island port city almost. Because of the geography in the ocean, they have difficulty getting materials in and out, and it's expensive to get materials in and out. So they've always reused things a lot. So they take a lot of scrap materials from the city and they reprocess it. So one of their ideas is to take that material, process it back into sheets of material, basically from scrap and garbage, compress it, and then make homes and furniture out of it. They already have built several solar homes in their Fab Labs. They have very large equipment, and they decided to go that route so they could build large pieces of furniture and homes. And also the first Fab Labs were in the School of Architecture in Barcelona. So that community decided that's the way they wanted to go with their Fab Labs. It's part of their Barcelona city system. The city government supports Fab Labs. Then you have in South Africa, for instance, the Fab Lab there, they take old cars and metal from the community, and then they cut it with a plasma cutter, a CNC plasma cutter. Instead of cutting wood like Barcelona did, they adapted their machines to have a plasma cutter that would run sort of a wood router. And they cut this material up into parts to make farm tractors. So that gives you a sense of the scale that you could go. And what our purpose is at the Museum of Science and Industry, and always has been, is to give people an idea of where they could go and give them a quick, easy introduction You know, because teaching somebody how to make a tractor from scratch in the community, that's going to take you a couple of months to train somebody else to do that. Our job at the museum is to just give you an introduction, a taste, and then decide if you want to start a community in your own fab, a fab lab in your own community, you think it might be useful, we can help you start one in your community. That's more how we're, because I'm in the education department, and we train teachers to become science teachers and teach science in different ways, better ways. And we also help people start fab labs at schools and their communities if they like to do that.
That's great. I think DeAndre, he's really trying to think outside the box on this, you know.
Facts.
How can we integrate a fab lab for sustainability?
Facts.
And, you know, there are a lot of things that's coming down the pipe now. We're talking about solar panels for communities. We're talking about energy. Well, like Tiny's got an e-car, electric car. You know, Tiny, talk a little bit about your car engine. Tiny lives in Inglewood. Talk about your car and how that's going.
Okay, well, it's really great.
There's a car in the background.
Yeah.
Okay, and I got it originally because of climate change. I wanted to kind of do something personally about, saving the earth. And then recently, I see it's been real lucky for me. I don't have to buy gas. And a lot of my friends, people have stolen their catalytic converters, and I don't have a catalytic converter, so that's a big help. So it's fast, it's efficient, it's fun to drive, and I think everybody should have one.
And you're saving the environment, right?
Yeah, saving the environment, right?
And saving a few thieves from trying to steal your car, and you have to put one in them.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
No, man, I think that's great, man. Tiny took the leap, you know. He's a gentleman of a certain age, and he took the leap, you know. But you know what? Now I think about it, the 3 people that I know that have e-cars, they are of a certain age. Maybe, it's the same reasons that you had. You want to save the earth, you don't have to worry about the gas, and it's pretty. How long do you expect to keep this vehicle?
I don't know, forever.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
Yeah, because you just swap the batteries out, right? That's it. If something, you don't have to do oil changes and all of that, right?
Yeah. So, that's something. I do have to get oil changes. And I wonder, why do I have to have an oil change in the electric car? But I just get oil changes.
Right, because you have a 2-cylinder BMW like motorcycle engine or something, like a backup on your vehicle.
Yes. Yes, a generator.
Yeah, that's probably. But
yeah,
it probably doesn't. You don't need like a regular oil change because you're not running it often, are you?
Right. I've never ran it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just probably. You should think about going with synthetic. You probably won't have to change it for years. But yeah, when you're talking sustainability, hey, these are some of the things we should be pushing in our communities. I definitely think solar and wind should be an initiative. Hold on one second.
Yeah. So one of the things that again, as we talk about, Steve and I, we always talk about sustainability and how are the efforts that we are exerting, how does that go into sustainability? And like I said, since I met Dan and we talked about the Fab Lab, I'm like, man, hold on. You telling me this thing could, and correct me if I'm wrong, as we talk about repurposing. So I thought that you could take, let's say, a table and throw into this machine, and this machine would turn that table into chairs if you wanted it to.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And since we're talking about electric cars,
wait. Now explain that
there's
one.
people making electric bicycles in Fab Labs from the ground up. And very often, it's the best thing, especially in Chicago, we got so much scrap everywhere, and we have some really intelligent scrappers going around collecting all this stuff. You can trade with them. You can say, hey, I got this you can take, but bring me this. That's something that we've been doing in our neighborhood in Bridgeport. We'll talk about that another time maybe. But, you know, can you make an electric car? Can you make an electric car from things that are already in your community? Probably, if you have a fab lab to process it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Could we make an electric car?
Yeah, you can make almost anything in a fab lab. That's what's amazing about it. It's
That's
sort of
what
like a universal toolkit.
So how do we get a fab lab to be based in the Austin community?
That's right. So we tried really hard with Phil Fairweather to get one installed in Bethel New Life. We even worked with one of the original founders of Bethel New Life. But their focus is a little different. That's okay. But we're going to keep on trying. So you need usually an organization to support installing the fab lab with a building and space and electricity, and maybe some are already having some sort of maker-based or hands-on activities already going on. And then from there, you should be able to launch one.
So let's-
and sometimes they fail, and you have to restart them. So
I'm just
that can
thinking.
happen too. And that's the nature of this, you know, it's cutting edge, right? So it's a little risky. But we're hoping through our support to the museum, we can train the staff. They can come and learn about the equipment. We can also show community leaders what the Fab Lab looks like at the museum, so they can learn about what it can do and have an experience where they make something in an hour, so they can have a hands-on feeling about what we've been talking about. What does it mean when you can make almost anything? When you realize what the machines can do and you see them firsthand, and have this discussion.
So I think what immediately comes to mind is the Mars facility on Armitage and XYZ is going to be leaving the Austin community. And I'm thinking like a big, beautiful building like that could utilize a fab lab.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, part of the reason why I struggle about what's happening in our communities because there's no forward thinking. The Fab Lab, this idea of creation, repurposing, this is cutting edge. This is where we need to be. And I'm like, bro, why isn't the leaders of the community involved in this type of work so that we can push our community forward? And I say that because in my mind, Austin could legit be the Wakanda of Chicago, right? And I say that knowing that Wakanda was essentially a technologically advanced society that people look to say, how did y'all do this, right? Like it was this hidden gem. And I see Austin as that hidden gem, the leader of the West Side, so to speak, that if we got this first, we could be those forerunners, those first movers of this type of technology, this innovation that people would be like, damn, I don't know why I wasn't involved in that sooner. And that really, and it upsets me because we don't have the type of leaders in place who's thinking like that.
Because they're not thinking outside the box.
You're right. It's really frustrating. And I think I was frustrated for years, getting angry actually. What I realized is that we just need to keep talking to our leaders and showing them and explaining to them what this is. One of our leaders that gets it is Representative Bill Foster, and he passed a bill to help support Fab Labs across the United States. So there are some leaders that are getting it. Under the Obama administration, we had huge strides forward for the maker community and Fab Labs. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we know what happened after that, and it wasn't as progressive as it was under Obama. So, and that's not to say that there's some Republicans that really support Fab Labs too, but it's been a little better.
I just thought about something. Do you know Naomi Davis with Big Blacks and Green out south there?
Makes sense. Name sounds familiar, but I don't think so.
Okay. I just thought you might
Yeah.
run across
But it is making connections. Me and Steve have had ideas about this for years. How do we bring what we see in our factories that we used to work in to the community level? Could we do community level manufacturing? It is a new idea. It's sort of old in the same way, because if you had multiple fab labs in multiple neighborhoods, you might start trading different goods between those fab labs rather than paying for them with cash. That's really disruptive, actually, if you start thinking about it.
Right.
Let me put it another way. This one's really disruptive when I say it. Some people get really wound up when I say this one. So here I go.
You better not have Barry on here.
The Fab Lab network democratizes the access to production, or more strongly, Fab Labs have the possibility to put the means of production in the hands of the community.
Right.
That's right out of that's very close to what Karl Marx is talking about. That's how powerful it is. I really believe that. I thought I felt a little out there saying that, but then one day I was sitting there and I'm like, that is what it could become.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the sort of things that we need as we explore going to Mars, for example. You cannot bring materials with you. You have to bring a set of machines to use the Mars dust to make your buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And in order for a community to make what they want, you need to be able to use the raw materials that are in the garbage, in the scrap bin. We call it scrap fabbing.
Mm-hmm.
You should be able to take that scrap and make it into whatever you want. And if you extend the Fab Lab, a couple decades into the future, I think that's what it will be doing. We'll be taking scrap material, other stuff that people throw away and discard, reprocessing it into things that we need, like housing, furniture,
Mm-hmm.
computers. You wouldn't believe how many computers we pull out of the garbage, and people are using them at home right now.
Right.
Things like that. That's what we're talking about. So I think we're getting a little closer to sustainability. Can we build electric cars? Could we build electric bikes? Maybe we could start with electric bikes and move up to electric cars.
Right.
Somebody, I think your name was it Tiny?
Yeah,
Tiny.
Mm-hmm. He's on.
Tiny might be able to help us out with the bikes and building them, because he has electric car and he has knowledge of that. That's when you start kind of getting this momentum. And it is really basically, you have the Fab Lab as a general set of manufacturing equipment. You learn how to use it, and then you decide what you want to make.
And you just made a good point. When DeAndre said repurposing, we could repurpose cars that are already here by pulling the engines out and then transforming them into electric cars.
So you might just fabricate the electric motor. Maybe you would, fabricate the laminations, the castings for that. Maybe you'd make that in the Fab Lab.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would put that into a car. Or maybe it'd be simpler than maybe you just make adapter brackets at first. You adapt an electric forklift motor that's been thrown in the garbage into a Toyota, a 1980s Toyota or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Tiny tries on that.
So look, Dan, if you had to say, how do we go about bringing something like the Fab Lab into the community? How can we do that?
Yeah,
and I gotta say, let me put the caveat.
It's the same question with how do you get computers to the community? How do you get internet to the community? We need help from our leaders.
Yeah.
It's a similar issue. For a while, I thought that maybe we had some kind of golden ticket and we could shortcut things. But now that I've been doing it for a while, I realize it's just like access to anything else. We need to explain it to our leaders. We need to get government funding. We need more grant support for that. Things like that. And the pandemic kind of set us back a little bit. The movement, when things get really tough in the country, some of those things drop to the wayside. Now we're going to build it back up and start talking this dialogue again. It would be nice to have support from the city government. Or can we grassroots it? Maybe we can. Some Fab Labs have been built grassroots up.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of different ways to start a Fab Lab. Ours have started in a the museum, and it started to fail. I was hired to fix that, build up a team, and we got the Wanger family supported it. So just listening to how the Fab Lab at the museum had some troubled times, that could be a model for like, okay, how can we do it in Austin? You know, what are the resources you have? Who is somebody that's in your community that has, I would say you want a smaller space than the big factory you're talking about.
Yeah.
You want to start with just enough space so you can afford rent.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
How do you pay for it, right? Some of them have memberships. So you have $50 a month that you pay for membership to get access to the equipment until it gets big enough. So there's lots of different models, and we have one really large hackerspace. You should visit that, Pumping Station 1. That's all membership driven. And one day I went in there, they were building a car. I couldn't believe it. So
I'm not gonna lie.
That facility,
Pumping
Station 1, you should take a look at it. So there's examples in the community that you can look at and then decide, okay, how does Austin remix it?
I'm not gonna lie to you, Dan. If they make me an alderman, if they vote me to be an alderman, we're going to use some menu money to open that space for, a year or two or something like that. Get a couple memberships like that, not just two, maybe 100. And we're gonna pay it off, and we're gonna make sure that people understand. Because one of the things that I am about is sustainability. I want to see more urban gardens. I want to see more technology used. I want to see us being able to utilize the space that we have in the most, sufficient and efficient ways possible. And I just don't think that we have enough of that right now. I really could see us being a mecca. I really could see us being a hub. I could see the makerspace being the center of attention, so to speak, to bring other tech companies around it. And really, man, but that's just me, though.
And it's a small scale endeavor, but it could be big. But it's good that that's what you think and what you want, DeAndre. And I think the same thing. But the key is, how do we get the masses in the community?
That's the problem. Yeah.
And they'll never think that if they don't know, they don't have any idea that they can do these things. And I hate to say this part, but it could be done kind of easy. It's not a lot. Oh, I got to go to college. Oh, I got to go to trade school. Oh, I got to have somebody go. It's not like that. I think the first way you get people to get involved, you have to ask the question, what do you want? What do you want for yourself? What do you want for your community? And if you ask that question, you can get that list. You can start to see where they all coincide, or where people have the same ideas or concepts. Like for me, I would say, what are the top 10 things you want in your community that's right there, readily accessible to you? And give me that list. And once I got the list, I can say, okay, let's see how we can make this. How can we manifest this into happening? How can we make this happen? How can we help people make these things happen? And I think one of the biggest things, my niece called me. She called me this week. And she said, "Oh, who's the alderman over here where I'm working at the school? Because we don't have a Starbucks in our community over here by the school." And when she said that, she's working at Manly. I said, "Wait a minute, you're absolutely right. There's not one Starbucks on the west side of Chicago between Ashland and Austin, from Grand to Ogden." Hey, Barry, how are you?
What's up, Barry?
You just missed out on this.
Hey, guys. Hey, Tiny. Okay.
What's up, Dan? Dan was just telling us about sustainability and some things we could do with maker spaces and fab labs in Austin. But I was just saying how we don't even have a Starbucks. She was like, "Wow, we don't. Where's the Starbucks? I got to go all the way to Ogden and Grand, to a Starbucks from literally Sacramento and Roosevelt." And
let's combine the two together. You contact Starbucks, tell them that you want them to install one on the west side, plus a fab lab. It'll be the first Starbucks fab lab in the country.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now that'd be crazy, though.
Like we joke sometimes about weird ideas like that. Then we've done a couple things like that. It's
Right.
been amazing what had actually happened.
Whose phone is it?
We can provide, the museum can provide training for your staff. And I've been trying to work at early stages, work on having some funding to support staff in other fab labs in the community of Chicago. But that's going to take some time. But right now, we can support training for your staff. We have a fab lab in the community. And we would do that for free because you don't have a lot of resources. So that's something we've done for years.
Well, maybe it should be the DeAndre Steve coffee shop and baker shop.
Maker spec shop. Yeah, coffee and maker shop.
I think, you know what, it could be. But as we were talking about, the difficulty in that is getting the community acclimated to this. The unfortunate is our community is, I don't even want to put it out that we're not ready for this, but we're not, again, I'm just gonna say acclimated. Like this type of stuff is stuff that we're not.
Hey Barry, you might need to
that's the unfortunate about it. But I do think if we bring it here, then we can get people acclimated to it though.
Another thing that the museum can offer is we can bring a mobile fab lab out to Austin and have people use it.
Barry.
Oh, we're gonna do that.
That's how Bill Foster helped us. We went to Aurora.
Yeah.
And Aurora eventually put a fab lab in their library. The other thing we could do is work with the Chicago Public Library Austin branches. And I know the Chicago Public Library wants to install some maker spaces, maker labs in the Austin area libraries. Now, the pandemic put a stop on that. They lost a lot of staff too in their maker spaces. So that'll be relaunched at some point, and there's some big support from Chicago Public Library Central and the commissioner of the Chicago Public Libraries to expand into neighborhoods like Austin with maker labs in their libraries.
Mm.
What staffing would you need?
In the maker labs in the libraries, it's usually 1 or 2 librarians so that you can cover most days of the week the library is open. And then the museum would train those librarians in all the technology we have at the museum, which we standardize. We have the same set of equipment that the library uses. So that helps us work together to get that done. So that would be lower hanging fruit. And then based on that, you'll have a group of users and say, hey, what if we scale this up to adults using it? It's usually high school and middle school students using it at the library, a few adults. And then you can scale it up to adult usage where we're talking about like making electric cars, stuff like that. That's when it really starts to take off. Not that it's, and then you have, I think what happens is you have the middle school students, the high school students, and then they get into college age, and now they know how it works, and they're using it, and they understand the impact of having a community, and then you start to build up a community over time of users and momentum.
Dan, what about combining it with the Repair Shop Cafe, which is in Austin Public Library?
Oh, that would be great.
I don't know how often they do that, and I wonder whether a school like Christ the King would be interested in using it at the library.
Yeah, that would be a natural time. If they're already doing that sort of activity, it's not a very big jump to go to, making parts for that repair shop. Because a lot of times when you're doing the repair shop activity, people bring stuff from home and they're repairing, you need some way to 3D print a car or mill a car or something like that, and then that opens the door. Another idea I thought about is there's just a couple miles from my house is the Chicago Tool Library where you can rent out tools or just borrow tools and then bring them back. And so you have access to a whole bunch of really nice tools that I never had access to before. And could you do a tool library, the repair shop, and the like? Why not do it all in the library? And then you have this fun borrowing tools. Oh, here, maybe I can use a 3D printer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I need to build this part. I've been thinking recently that maybe there's something there too. Just some ideas to give you some things to think about what might work for us. Because the community's got to come first. I was really worried about for a long time, and still am, that you don't want to push the Fab Lab on the community.
Mm-hmm.
They have to need it and want it, and see that it's needed for what they want.
Right. If they can itemize some things that they're looking to have, then you can kind of figure out a way to develop a program or a space or manufacturing entity around it. And I just brought up the coffee shop, but does everybody drink coffee now? But hey, it is kind of odd that you don't have between Humboldt Park, Garfield, Lawndale, parts of Lawndale, I want to say. I don't think there is one in Lawndale at all. Little Village and Pilsen, Austin. We don't have a Starbucks. Between Ashland, I just put it like this: between Ashland and Austin, Grand and Ogden.
What about local coffee shops? Do you have any local coffee shops for people hang out?
No.
We don't even have a Dunkin' Donuts that I can recall.
Well, it sounds like a market opportunity, and let me tell you, just to let you know, a lot of the hacker spaces, which are similar to Fab Labs, they're just run in a different way, started in the back of a coffee shop with people soldering and repairing things. It's sort of like the repair workshop that was just brought up. And then they said, okay, now let's get a couple pieces of equipment. They had some 3D printers in the coffee shop. They're like, hey, we need to get our own space. It's taking up too much of the coffee shop. And then they started renting. That's the grassroots way. So you can look at the hacker spaces as a grassroots way to build up this capacity.
Right.
So, now the Fab Labs, the hacker spaces, the maker spaces all share at this point. They used to be kind of separated. Now it's like a big Venn diagram where everything's overlapping. So looking at all those spaces is the best way to get an idea. And then letting people have an experience like the mobile Fab Lab idea, just so people can get a sense of like what this could be about. You can understand quicker seeing that. Because you guys understand because you visit it.
Right.
People have Fab Lab, so it makes sense to you. It's kind of hard to absorb the first time, even for me. I'm like, what? And then when I started absorbing, I'm like, wow, this is revolutionary.
Yeah, and you don't want people to think it's just as easy as I think it, I make it, but it really is kind of like I think it, I make it. There are steps that you have to go through, but it's not very vast education you have to have.
Yeah, and making things like a toy or something that you want memento is really easy to design. You don't have to worry so much about function. And that kind of gives you a taste of that process flow. Okay, design on the computer, I set it up on the computer to the machine makes it, and then I have it, an hour later. Then once you understand that process flow, you say, okay, how do I make an iPhone case?
Right.
iPhone case. Okay, I can download one from the internet, and then like, oh, that's cool. I want to put my name on it now. Okay, I got to learn how to type it, subtract that out of the model, and then I print that. So there's the museum and my staff have gotten really good at what the process is like and what steps people go through different stages. You don't just go straight to custom design.
Right.
Scratch. Usually modify other things. Copy other things. Copying's not bad either. People share things. So it's very flipped around from what we teach people in school. So a lot of troubleshooting, critical thinking, in order to get through this process. Sharing and copying things is not looked down on. Nothing is an F. It's just iterate until it's working right in the amount of time you have, and then you have a product. Yeah, it's pretty flexible.
Right.
Can it be used in regard to some income generating stuff, like doing it, creating stuff for businesses?
Yes, yeah. So you tell me
ideally, local businesses, but the probably isn't enough local businesses going.
Yeah, things like Etsy, like the online store Etsy, a lot of people are 3D printing, milling, and using this technology to run their Etsy stores. One of the ones that's probably most familiar to people is you have t-shirt shops, right?
Sure.
That make t-shirts to you. The vinyl cutter in the Fab Lab, you can make a t-shirt yourself. And if you get into mass production, you might buy a bigger vinyl cutter. And you might buy mass production so you can scale it up to a business level. Entrepreneurship is part of it, and then you can release it open source, or you can keep it private. But when you're in the Fab Lab, the general rule is show other people what you're doing so they can learn how to do it too. But then you can spin it off into a business. That is happening quite often too. Makerspaces in the Fab Labs have produced entire businesses. Probably the biggest one is MakerBot 3D printers. That
Hey, Barry, you got to go on mute.
In a hackerspace, and then became a large company that got bought by Stratasys.
Barry, we can hear your pants.
Yeah, so there are examples of going all the way from just making a trinket to making a whole company.
Oh,
You had started to react about, when people take to it, which was sad, but
no, you know what? I actually saw something pop up on the screen. I think that was Feisty.
I don't
So
see it.
I ended up looking over there and reading.
You want me to pull it back? Because I don't have it over here.
Oh,
Wait a minute.
anywho,
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, go ahead, Mary. It's not a problem. You got something to say?
good.
Can't get in there.
You asked me just as I could bite my mouth. So,
That's all right. Does anybody else have anyone else have any questions or comments?
well, I'm interested in doing something with electric cars. Was taking them and putting engines into cars that are already running, or developing an engine, or I'm interested in looking into that.
So
where
what?
do we go from here? How about an accessory for an electric car that could be made in a maker space? Okay.
Like,
I would say go visit Pumping Station 1, Tiny, and Steve. Have you been there before?
no, I've heard of it. That's the one out in Fort City.
No, that was Jackie Moore's space. That was a robotics space.
Okay.
This one is in it's on the northwest side of Chicago in Avondale. You can look it up because what Tiny's asking about making, you can make there. They have the equipment to make electric motors.
Okay.
And I think it'd be interesting for you to see how they operate that place and how they afford it. And they went from, I think it was a 5,000 square foot to 10,000 square foot to 20,000 square foot factory space in about the last 10 years and scaled it up to the point where they have the equipment to make electric motors and install it into vehicles. Yeah, that was the day I went in there. They were making a roll cage for an off-road vehicle from scratch in there, and I realized they were able to make cars. That was a huge moment for me to see a community-run space run by volunteers, managed by volunteers, and volunteer money, and they're making cars. Like that's what you're talking about, Tiny. Building vehicle parts, and I think Pumping Station 1 and attending one of their meetings and learning about how they operate their space would be informative to you guys in the Austin community.
Oh, so that's Avondale.
Avondale, yeah.
Okay. All right, great. I'll look that up.
Yeah, and I could help with Steve. I could help you connect with the board of directors there, and they would be happy to have you over there. They love it. They like to show off their space to any other space that's looking at building a place to make things like that.
Right. I got you.
Okay, so Steve, I'll call you and we'll work on that.
Yeah, Avondale where's Avondale at? That's north of Irving Park somewhere, I guess.
Yeah, it's Irving Park and 94 essentially.
Okay. Oh, I know. I think I know the place. I think our guy George knows about it. I think George probably knows about this place.
Yeah, he's visited there. I think I've actually seen him there.
Yeah. I have to ask George a little more. But I mean, the possibilities are unlimited. especially when you get kids and younger people involved with it, they'll see things that you never even thought about making, and they would develop it and make it, in a blink. But I still think
Exactly.
to get the buy-in from the community, you have to ask the question. What do you want? What do you want to see at arm's length, at arm's reach, that you can work with and have as a part of your community as a necessity? I mean, we always talk about stores and grocery stores and obviously now Starbucks or coffee shops, but there are many things that go into grocery stores. There are many things that go into coffee shops that could be made right here in the community. We never think about those things.
Yeah.
DeAndre, we were talking about what are you talking about? Weed place?
Hemp.
Not weed, but hemp. Yeah. How we can
We
develop
need to use hemp.
as a material. Something you didn't talk about. Did you talk about the 3D, not the 3D laser, but the laser that you have? Also, not laser printer, but the laser, low wattage laser. Dan?
Yeah, there's some low wattage lasers coming out. They're pretty low cost. The laser cutters are kind of expensive, so I've been wanting to use lower cost machinery.
Yeah.
And I think like here, we'll show you a couple of them. Like here's a small milling machine I'm experimenting with right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's on the right. This thing is unbelievable. I just machined some aluminum on it. I couldn't believe it. It's like a tiny machine like we had in manufacturing.
Right.
This is a 3D printer. This 3D printer is really reliable.
Mm-hmm.
I love this thing for plastic parts. So I have capability to make circuit boards on this machine, which could be for electric cars too tiny.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the plastic accessories. I think the accessories for cars, you have two people from Austin that just said they want accessories for the cars and they want to be able to make motors. So, some machines like this would be helpful. And then you can see the other machines at Pumping Station 1. You can visit the museum and see what we have. There's various different things and things like that. So, but I do think that showing the community what's possible is important.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll decide, like we just had happen tonight. Two people suggest what they want to make.
Right.
You kind of once you understand the concept and have some hands-on time with it, then the what do you want? I don't know if it changes or it becomes more informed.
Mm-hmm.
People get excited. They're like, "Oh, I can make almost anything. I can make almost anything. I just made something in an hour. I made a creature. Oh, what else can I make?" And that conversation starts.
I like to.
And then you can have an informed decision on whether a Fab Lab, which is really a tool for a community, is the right match. Yeah, I guess that's how to put it.
You know what I like to see? I like to see us, and I know this is what we need in our communities: vertical windmills or windmills that they can use to generate energy and sell it back to the electric companies or utilize it. And there aren't a lot of components. Some of them you just have to buy straight out, like the inverters and what have you. But even then, you can develop, you can have an inverter and develop a case for it or what have you.
Fab Labs are used for prototyping a lot, definitely prototypes, and then some large scale stuff. So there's been several actually vertical windmills tested in Fab Labs.
Yeah.
I'd have to check and see how many made it to commercial ventures.
But have you seen those little?
Think along the right lines there.
Yeah, you've seen those vertical windmills. They're no more than like 6 feet tall, and they're probably 6 to 10 inches, 10 inches in diameter, and they look like a helix. You can stick them. They're not very obtrusive and taking up a lot of space. You can put them on a platform off to the side, on the roof, what have you. And they don't really take up all that extra space that typical windmills usually have. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
What kind of windmills are those?
those are vertical windmills that typically they work like off of a helical,
Mhm.
setup. But you don't have to have the big blades or or the smaller blades, which take up some space also. But yeah, this is something that you can do right in your backyard or on the rooftop. Generate some energy. Other thing is, since electric cars are becoming more and more prevalent, the idea of having charging stations. There are a few components in the charging station that typically, you can make those with the, Fab Lab 3D printer or what have you.
Yeah, this fits right into what Tiny's talking about. Maybe you could charge your car from these things. This is Camp Lindbergh's Fab Lab, which is in France.
Mm.
And they're experimenting with generating power with these things they made in their Fab Lab, these windmills, these vertical windmills, exactly what you're talking about. And I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, I've seen them present a couple times, and they are charging stuff with these.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's amazing. Like, look at that. We talked about vertical windmill. We found a Fab Lab that's doing it.
Right.
So, do you think we could create a vertical windmill with a Fab Lab in Chicago, well, in Austin, that would allow us to also charge vehicles?
Right.
Could we get enough wind power to do that?
You need a.
Well, that's how you want to experiment on this,
biggest
like they're
source.
doing here. You want to experiment on the small scale and then say, if we scale this up, how much energy loss is there to scale upwards or increase? We don't know. And then you could make that determination yourself without. And this looks like they're using scrap and stuff here. It doesn't look like real fancy materials. Looks like they're using stuff they find. So that would be a question you can answer for yourself. What's more powerful than that?
True indeed.
Well, I think I'm just looking at the size of the propellers. I can almost say you need a lot more turbine power or turbulence, not turbulence, but wind power to generate enough wattage and convert to the volts that's needed. How many? Hey, Tiny, how much is it? How many volts is your car? Your battery? Do you know?
No.
No.
Let me see. It's got 94 something. I don't really know what the voltage of it is, but the size of it is 94. Whatever.
94 kilowatts, probably.
Okay.
Yeah. And then what is it? I'm trying to remember how many amps a regular charger takes. You're probably looking at maybe 20 amps. It takes like a whole circuit for overnight charging.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you charge your car, do you plug it into like a high current 120 volt outlet?
Well, I got both. I either do the 120 or the 220.
Yeah.
220. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so a full circuit at 120 is 20 amps, and I think it's similar for the 220, but it's at 220 at 20 amps, which is way more watts. So how long does it take you to charge on the fast structure? It's pretty fast, right?
Yeah, I think I've never done it. I've just never been all the way down. So I guess maybe like 4 hours.
Wow. Okay. And then I know those windmills we were just looking at. Those run off of a car alternator, which from our exteriors we installed, Steve. I'm trying to remember. I think it's about 40 amps maximum output. But that's at 12 volts. So you'd have to do some calculations. So you're talking, you have to have a pretty big wind farm.
Yeah.
Probably about 60 to 100 of those windmills to charge Tiny's car.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there is my rough guess. So yeah, you're talking about quite a few windmills, and then you want to compare that to solar.
Amps.
Maybe solar would be better.
It says 32 amps it takes to charge the average EVs So 32 amps, which only gives you about 25 miles range per hour. 32 amps charging station is a good choice for many vehicles. Yeah, you have to convert the amps into watts. Yeah, I'm almost certain that one of those windmills would not be enough.
No.
Not at all.
And
Not
unless
that
you
one.
want to wait a week to drive around
Yeah.
for one day. but what we're talking about right now, and I want to bring this up too, what the Fab Lab does is it brings people together in the community to have these technical discussions. So a lot of times you're just meeting to talk about ideas like we are right now, except you have that happen a lot if you have a space to make things. And I think that's very important to mention, that you start to have this culture of thinking about troubleshooting and then bouncing ideas off each other. So it's a community space to think about technology. And you spend a lot of time just doing that, and then when you get a good idea that everybody thinks is practical, then you start making stuff. That's how often I see how the hackerspace, which is more of a grassroots system, working. That's really powerful in my opinion, having an incubator for just meeting and thinking and talking about making things and then taking action on those thoughts. And then having the equipment where you can take action immediately. That's really important.
Now those vertical windmills, I can see those in what we have in a lot of our in Austin, on the west side. They have quite a few gardens. You know, they have vegetable gardens and flower gardens, and they may need a source for light. You know, or a source for what else could you run in a garden?
You might need planters. You could fabricate planters in the Fab Lab.
Yeah, true.
You could do hydroponic systems.
Yeah.
You could do soil electronics and measuring devices.
Yeah.
You could do pumps.
You can do quite a few things for the gardens because we do have a lot of gardens. Think about it, that can be made. Things that could be made for them. But I was just thinking outside the box as far as windmills. Windmills are, I think, are the perfect place to put in a garden. I mean, but you got to think of what you need, the power source. Maybe pumping water, maybe, I don't know. But you don't really.
Yeah, you're right, Steve. On farms in rural America before electricity, windmills were a really good way to move water around.
Yeah. I mean, but we don't really have to think of water pressure is pretty, what is it? It's pretty high. It's from the city. That pump's probably not so much, but maybe for some source of like a lighting or something at night, or for something that could I don't know. We have to ask people that do gardening more to see what they actually would need electricity for in a garden.
I don't think you need electricity, especially if you got like an outdoor garden. Because I'm just thinking we don't use electricity at all in any type of way because of the sun, it's natural sunlight.
Right.
You know, so.
But I'm saying like maybe at night you just want a garden light to come on to be on or something, and you wouldn't have to put an electric.
True indeed.
You don't need to pay electric bill for that, or just have it on like a timer or something. It's a lot of ways you can utilize it. There are a lot of ways, and the idea is to make the windmill from makerspace, or the Fab Lab. That would be the idea, to try to create these things and then pass them on to the Austin Gardens or the Austin Green Teams or what have you. So there's a lot of sustainability we can look at doing. Now what we need to do, we should have the congressman here today, ask him how can he help us get things like that developed. Because one thing, and look, we could take it a step further.
Mm-hmm.
We could have the garden, have a windmill that's made by the Makerspace Fab Lab, and grow, well, I don't know how hard this will be, grow coffee beans. I don't know if we can grow coffee beans in Chicago. That'd be a hard thing to do. Very hard thing to do. But there's other things you can have that can go into a coffee shop that you can grow in the garden. I wonder if anybody else.
Sandwiches and stuff like that. There's all kinds of
vegetables and what have you. So I mean, we need the list. You know, it's just like anything. You know, Dan, in engineering, you have to have your bill of materials. And we don't even we right now we're just talking about form, fit, and function. How do we create the product that fits the form and the function? You know.
Yeah, maybe invite the youth that help with the gardens over to use the Fab Lab that been started at the alderperson's office, and then they would tell you what they would get a little bit of orientation, and they would start making what they want for the garden. And it happens almost automatically once you have users of another space and access to the equipment.
That's true.
And yeah.
I know we talked about doing signs for the block clubs, you know, developing block club signs that go on the corners. And that being said, I just thought, you know, utilizing some of the like the 3D router or the laminate machines, we can use that to actually create some things for signs for what 4x5, no 4x3 signs, I think they are, something like that.
You know what? That makes me think. So now that we're in the midst of political season, and Steve is saying like the 4x3 signs, can you use a Fab Lab to make the signs that you see out on the street for people that are running for elected office?
Yeah, you can, and they're kind of fancy though.
Yeah.
So there becomes a point. You might do some prototypes and get them kind of laid out and say, "Hey, I like this." Then it's almost always better to go to a sign shop and have them mass produce.
Right.
So a lot of times you would prototype the signs and say, "Yeah, I got it," and then you send it to a service like Fast Signs is who I use.
Printing and print shop is definitely going to be more economical.
So you need to think about existing resources that are already maybe cheaper and faster at making it, but you could prototype it in the Fab Lab.
Yeah. But
What do you think about using the makerspace as a teaching vehicle for young people or old people?
That's that's an excellent idea. Go ahead.
And thinking that rather than trying to come out with a product to actually start a business from it, all that stuff, which is really long-term stuff, that we focus on trying to get people interested in it, get the experiences of it, and organize for that purpose, as opposed to organizing for a product.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things that's been noticed with the Fab Labs, the second Fab Lab that was in Boston after the one was at MIT, one of the most important things that was learned there for the students is they learn how to use computers, they learn how to design on computers, they learn programming, and then they learned about 3D printing and the milling machines and other stuff like that. But a lot of them went and got jobs in programming from that first Fab Lab. So that Fab Lab in Boston and the public housing project really, and then adults started getting how to use Excel and Word training. So that Fab Lab was more computer focused and was more about getting jobs immediately. Or it could be longer term over time, like you're talking about the impact of that. So definitely Fab Labs are used in that way. And me and Steve both know if you have a high school student or an older person who's switching careers and knows how to use a 3D printer and they have a certificate from Daly College, they're going to be more employable. So it can be a way to get jobs too.
Mm-hmm. So job development piece also.
Yeah, actually, Phalanx Family Services on the southwest side of Chicago. They're putting up their wall. They're just about ready to install Fab Lab. So it's going to be our first community service organization in Chicago that has a Fab Lab. So that's happening in the southwest side. I'm working with Phalanx. Actually, the woman who contacted me, they're just contacted me the other day and sent me a picture of the walls going up.
Wow.
So community services are starting to understand the importance of, because they do a lot of computer training and stuff like that, and they want to
Mhm.
expand into more modern technology for their adults and high school age students that they serve in their community.
Can the museum funnel people to a maker space in, say, the Austin Public Library?
Maybe elaborate a little more. I don't quite understand.
If you said that if you put it out there, because you get huge amounts of people coming to the museum, I assume, and some of them might be interested in seeing how a makerspace operates within a community like Austin.
Yeah, we have tried with. I don't know if I'm exactly will answer this correctly, but we found that we are best positioned to support a community that says, yes, I want a Fab Lab, and we can train the staff to run it. That's where we sit really well. And we were trying to help get a Fab Lab going in the I'm blanking, Steve, right now. Help me out.
Where is
The
it?
church there.
Where? Which church?
And
Christ the King?
yeah,
What are you talking about? Where's it
yeah,
located?
that didn't work out. So we've learned that we can provide a certain amount, and I would like to have some funding available for the staff year after year in some of the fellows we help support training in. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but right now we can train the staff. Once you decide you want a Fab Lab, we can do that. I don't know if that answers your question exactly. And we can also bring a Fab Lab, a mobile Fab Lab, over to the Austin community so the community can see a small slice of what a Fab Lab is about, experience firsthand, and then that'll kind of hopefully spark a discussion further along those lines. And we can also get the mobile Fab Lab from MIT. It's a truck, semi-truck, that could come to the community or festival, and that one has even bigger capability. We've run that a few times. That would be a suggestion as well. That truck.
So-
to Austin.
Yeah. So what's the turnaround on getting the? Because I would want both of these to be available for our community in a very, very, very near future. So what's the turnaround? Because one, we have upcoming National Night Out, and those are like the first week of August in a couple of the police districts that we work in. We're gonna have a ton of kids that are gonna be there. And then two, we also have Danny Davis Back to School Parades that's gonna be coming up. And that's gonna be about the second week of August. And that's gonna be over here at Columbus Park. And so either one of those, we'd love to have the Makerspace Fab Lab be available to us in the Austin community. So what's the turnaround? How soon do we need to let you know to have one of those trucks available for us, or both of them?
I'm looking at the schedule now. So because of our summer camp load, the summer's been difficult and our reduced staff. But coming the fall, a really good time would be, looks like mid-November would be.
Damn.
We'd be able to do it.
It's packed up.
And then we should look at, for the mobile lab, we should look at next summer. So that's a longer lead time, because there's two trucks that serve the whole United States.
Damn.
And I would need, that's from MIT.
Yeah.
We have to find out where the trucks are at, and then we would get it scheduled to come by. The trucks are cool though.
Yeah.
They're really cool. They have really cool graphics on the side, and they have some pretty heavy equipment. They're well equipped. And then my team would come and run those. So normally, like in 2018, it could have been like a couple weeks I could have done a turnaround. But unfortunately, I can't do that quick of a turnaround. So
Damn. So it's like we better start putting our bid in now if we want to get it next year.
yeah, for the mobile Fab Lab, which that'll have the highest impact.
We want the mobile Fab Lab for sure.
But, yeah, and we're working on We're trying to get funding for 2023 to have our own mobile fab lab. So we're working on one where we'd have a lot faster turnaround, and we'd be able to bring that quickly to the community. There's been a lot of discussion about that. And now I'm going to mention that Austin's asking about it. And that'll put some fuel on my management at the museum, like, hey, this is a real thing that people want.
Yeah. I think that's,
And you gotta ask about it.
we are asking about it, but again, I find a little bit difficult only because I truly believe, and like I said, I would love to see us become the Wakanda of the West Side, to become technologically advanced, to utilize solar energy and wind energy and maker spaces to repurpose things. Like, I want to see that. But again, I'm not in leadership, and I could potentially influence leadership by getting enough people involved. But my question is, if the individuals of this community are not ready for that, or that's not something that they want to see, are we going to make an impact if we bring something like this to the community? And I'm hesitant. I have a slight trepidation, but I also want to bring it because I do believe there's no way to really gauge if that's possible. I mean, unless it's here. If it's not here, then we don't know what's going to go on, But if it's here, then at least we can say whether it worked or not,
DeAndre, I'm so happy to hear you say that, because I see people rush into it too quickly, and it is something that you should think about that way and question.
Mm-hmm.
For the small mobile lab, how many people would you need to go through it in order for it to be successful from the museum's point of view?
We're lucky because the MIT mobile fab lab that we're talking about, and then I have the staff to run it. We will do it. We don't have a metric like that. You've asked for it. Now we'll work on delivering it.
Mm-hmm.
And if we have 20 people go through it, that's okay. If we have 300, which would be kind of the maximum capacity of it anyway, because you kind of need some time to absorb it and understand what's happening inside of it. So yeah, that's a good question, but the museum is well resourced enough with the support of MIT, and MIT and the museum would love to get this mobile fab lab into Austin community at an event. And then we should start with the smaller one too. So it might be more pop-up style, or maybe during the winter we could do indoor things. Oh, wait a minute, I want to mention to you, there's another organization that's going to start up a fab lab that's closer to you guys than Felix Family Fab Lab. Mm-hmm. It is, let me look it up here. It's, what is the name of that organization? Oh, maybe let's keep talking and then I can look that up.
Okay, no worries. So here's my thing. Is it possible that if we get MIT as well as MSI involved, can we get possibly the Black CEO as the woman to come out? And also, can we get some Black individuals that are in that space to come out and show the kids and adults how to utilize this technology?
Yeah, that would be really good. I agree with you. Yeah, I would really push hard for that. And then my vice president, she's a Black woman as well. She could come out. She's really excellent speaking about the Fab Lab, and her and I working together when we first restarted the Fab Lab. So yeah, unfortunately, my staff is all white again. All my
you said all white
guys,
again.
All the Black folks that were on my team all moved ahead and up and higher in life. So I need to work on that a little bit.
You said they're all white again, like they changed colors.
Yeah. I got to remember this other organization because it's very close to the West Side.
Well, I think this is something that we definitely, if Congressman Davis was here today.
Because he has the technology. What is it?
Yeah, technology initiative. And this is something we can kind of try to integrate. Yeah, he's been doing this technology initiative for at least 8 years now, 8, 9, or more.
If we could get get Davis into the Fab Lab demonstration and get them to understand.
Yeah, maybe
That would be a big thing. And maybe Bill Foster, it's not his district, but maybe he would come out, and that would get all the people to come out and check it out, something like that.
Where's Bill Foster? Is he out south or something? I'm not familiar.
He's I was just looking at it. I forget what his district is. It's Aurora. It's far west.
He might know him. He probably knows him. So definitely we want to make sure we can reach out to and get some initiatives going.
You guys got any other questions that you wanted to ask? This was very impromptu, so we put Dan on the spot to just ask him some questions if he involved.
I know. Anybody got questions?
That's okay.
Yes. You said 300 max for the MIT mobile lab. What about the smaller one that you guys have?
Oh, that's a good question. So we can scale it to what you need. So I can do a really in-depth smaller groups, all the way up to like 1,000 people in one day. We're really good at scaling the experience for that for the event.
Small number is how much?
You can go anywhere from a class of like 15, for a multiple hour experience, or it could go all day long and we could have 1,000 people go through an experience. So I have full control of that Fab Lab experience. My team has learned how to scale for the community.
Well, that's great, because that really gives us a wide range.
Yeah.
From 15 to 1,000. And what about the big lab from MIT?
The big lab is a deeper dive experience. The maximum would be 300, might even be less, because it's a minimum. There really isn't any. There isn't any minimum.
Make up something.
Okay. So if you really want to go in super deep dive on the MIT mobile Fab Lab, you could do maybe between 30 to 60 students in a day, and you'd have a multiple hour long experience where they make something like a piece of furniture as a group. As a group, they might work in groups, and then we might have them assemble a chair in each group. Each group of 15 people, and let's say you had 60, so that'd be 4 cohorts of high school students, 15 in each group, and they each have a piece of furniture they can assemble. Something like that would be the low end.
Right.
And that's
15 times what? How many of those?
Times 4. So that would be 60. That would be a whole day experience. That would be pretty intense. And that's kind of how it works. You can go from a really fast experience with designing and making something, or you can go really deep dive where you make a piece of furniture, but then the number of people going through it is smaller. So the deeper you dive into the technology, the less capacity you have, but the more impact it has on those folks, or the potential for that. And then it's just a light touch, just so people get a basic understanding of what's happening in the Fab Lab. But it's a really fast experience. So it might be like laser cut keychain, and you just type your name in the computer, and it says something like Austin Fab Lab, the future, and it has your name that you typed in there, and it just gets that on there. So that would be the light experience where you can process, hundreds of people per day.
Yeah.
So, Steve, can I ask you guys a question?
Sure. Go ahead, Barry. Go ahead.
It seems to me that one possibility is invite all the important politicians to come to the event and use that to draw in more churches and more schools. So that would be going the big group. And the other would be where we have to have at least 15, which we could probably do easily, I'm guessing. And I'm wondering which way you guys are inclined to go, or something else besides.
Well, I got my wheels turning now because of some of the things that Tiny said, some of the things that you're saying, many of the things that Dan's saying, and the components component that's missing is Congressman Davis, because I've never
Yeah.
introduced this to him. I've never even mentioned any of this to him. And he does have a technology initiative.
You got a
that I've been-
technology initiative, yeah.
And I think I need to sit with him or have him on the show to talk about this amongst everybody so we can get a little bit of where the wind is going with this. And then we take him to see it, and then he can, see how he can help assist the community, the neighborhoods, the West Side in general, in establishing these things. Because I'm already liking the idea of a coffee shop makerspace, a coffee shop maker shop,
It's crazy. And I don't know if this will fit because of what the community wants, but down in the area where I live, which is called the Island, over on, I think the street is Menard, we've been going back and forth with a developer about a space that is directly adjacent to the grammar school, G.R. Clark. And so some individuals of the community want to turn this into another play area for the students. Some have thought about using it as a parking lot. Some have thought about using it as a place where it could be a cafe / library. And there are other ideas of what this space could be used still. I could see this being a space where if we get with the developer and let him know, and as a developer, I'm not a developer, but I understand the economics of business. He would want to know how I can get paid off of this, but still, I could see us where we could potentially build again. Going with Steve was saying, a coffee shop, cafe, however you want to term it, with a makerspace, and I could see kids being attracted from that school to want to come over there and build stuff, And so it's just like there's so many ways that we could really go with this, and implementation in our community is necessary. But again, as Steve mentioned, we have to get the leadership involved in it. And what Barry was speaking to, we have, some of those connections, to be able to bring them and say, hey, this is where Austin needs to be. Technology is not going nowhere. In fact, it's far outpacing humans. But so we need to catch up in some way, shape, or form, or at least utilize it to our benefit in our community.
There you go.
So
I would suggest a deeper dive then, because
What's that?
I've noticed when politicians are around, like some high school students, and they see the impact on them, and they talk about what they made, and they can describe to the politician that they made this piece of furniture, they designed it, customized it, and made it, and assembled it. That can be pretty powerful. Oh, I found out the location. Guess what? It's right by Austin. I think it might be in Austin. Build Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
We know people there.
Yeah, we're working with them and have selected equipment and looked at their space. They're going to have a Fab Lab as part of that community center that they're building.
Yes,
So that would be a great place for the politicians to visit as well once that's built, right? They're in the middle of building it right now.
Yeah,
We were over
absolutely.
there about 6 months ago, and we're working with them on training their staff to operate that Fab Lab for their high school.
Yeah, it's right around the corner from Christ King.
Yeah, 5100 West Harrison Street.
Laramie and
So that's South Austin, right?
yes, Austin in general.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's
Given that that's happening, how does that change what we are talking about, Steve?
It doesn't. It really doesn't, because that's just one place, and the entities that really they have sold them on the idea, but they haven't sold to anyone else. I don't know the Alderman has never mentioned this to me, because if he had, I would have told him I already knew about it. The state reps never mentioned this to me, so if they had, they would have. I don't think they have a clue about it. It's just something that the Museum of Science and Industry has sold the idea to build. We know quite a few. We know Bradley over there, and what's Bradley's last name? Tom or something? I think the guy's name is.
I know Bradley at Weena,
Weena, yeah.
and that's about it.
Bradley Johnson.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, that's it. That's all I know.
So, we have some connects over there. So, but you know,
Yeah, and you're going to have a bunch of high school students that are going to be learning about how to operate a Fab Lab coming out of Build Chicago, and now we can start talking about building a bridge to adult usage.
Right.
They're going to be adults in a few years, and then 4, 5, 6. How many Fab Labs do you need in the neighborhood? You can increase the density. You can scale there too, in many ways.
well,
That's a good question to think about more, though. What does that
yeah,
what does that mean? The Build Chicago has one, and then I think it means an opportunity because now you're having high school students trained to use it. They might become the operators of the first Fab Lab that's totally community facing. Because I think Build Chicago is focused only on high schools. I don't think adults can go in there and use the
Well,
facilities.
there's a high school right across
And then
the
the
street.
libraries. What about if we have the Maker Labs in the libraries in Austin? Which libraries? Now you're talking about an ecosystem within Austin where people can walk to a Fab Lab to make something.
Yeah, the library, the main library. We know Joe over there. She's the head librarian. I mean, we could talk with her about it also. It's just you got to have a special space for it because it could be you got to have a quiet room. You know what I mean? Or a corner to put it in the library, don't you think?
Yeah, I have a strong opinion about that. So I like to have a quiet space where you have computers and the machines very close together because you can see people go from designing to making and back again.
Mhm.
And that is something that really builds momentum. And then a place for everybody to sit around and hang around and talk and have ideas,
Right.
and then just go out to the edges of the room and make something. That's how Failing's Family Fab Lab are going to be. And then I think Build will be similar setup too. We're going
Right.
to have the computers and the machines all in the same room.
How big a space are we talking?
The Museum of Science and Industry Fab Lab started as, I think it was about 4,000 square feet. It's a little,
That's
it's a little,
That's,
yeah, that's small as far as
I'm
Fab
gonna
Labs
say
go.
that's
And then
4,000
I have a Fab Lab
Yeah.
in my
The whole
200
ground
square
floor,
foot
the whole
bedroom
ground
here.
floor.
So
oh,
that's the smallest I've heard of. And then you have very large ones, which are factory size, like Pumping Station 1, which has 40,000 square feet now.
Right.
that's big.
So-
That's big.
Yeah, but the library would have a huge space available on the first floor, I wouldn't think. But I
No,
don't know.
No,
Well, 5,000,
There's something around.
we're going to have to.
yeah, 5,000 square foot is not too big in a library. It could be off to the side somewhere, like the size of a children's section,
5%.
small children's
oh
section.
shit.
Yeah.
5,000. What's the square root of 5,000?
Ooh.
What?
What? Square root of 5.
He's trying to figure out the square size.
Oh, you're trying to figure out. You're trying to figure out length times width.
I think you could
The
have,
square
let's see
root.
here, you could have like a 24 by 10 foot area.
So
Or-
20 by 12?
Yeah, you could fit it in that small. Yeah. And it's this, a 3D printer, a vinyl cutter. Sometimes you have a volunteer in the library running it. So that's something we should talk about more. There's lots of different ways to operate a Fab Lab, from all volunteer. My favorite thing is seeing a 12-year-old at a library who was a volunteer teaching everybody, adults, librarians, how to use all the equipment.
That's
That was-
fire.
That was their expert. So
That
there's
sounds
lots
good.
of different ways to remix the use of the space once you get people involved.
All I'm hearing is that this is an opportunity that no other community is really taking advantage of, and us being connected to you, Dan, gives the Austin community the advantage of bringing that here and utilizing it in the very best way for the community. So we're gonna keep talking about this. I
Right.
wanted to go ahead and start winding down and wrapping up the show. And I wanted to, and typically, as we get to the end, we always wrap up with some words that individuals would like to share with us. And so we start with the Zoom.
Go ahead, Tiny. If you have anything in conclusion. How Ella, well, go ahead, Tiny.
Well, hey, I'm glad I tuned in tonight, and I look forward to going on with this.
Yeah, I mean, the action items for now is, for me, is to touch base with the congressman and see where he's at about this kind of thing. Because, ultimately, we need some funding. We definitely need some funding to establish it, to keep it, to get it going. But the people are out there. Ella, are you there? Anything?
Yes, I'm here. I think that's a great idea to have the Fab Lab begin in Chicago Public Schools. Now, because, years ago, when I was in high school, we had all kind of stuff to inspire and innovate youth and create stuff. We had homemaking nights, we had workshops, we had all of these things. So the Fab Lab would be just another way of keeping their children engaged and to use their own creativity or think of things, to create. I think it would be a good deal to have that in the schools. I don't know how it can be done, but it would be a great start.
Okay. How about you, Ms. Jacobs? Anything in conclusion?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea as well. So as far as the community, just give us something to think about, and maybe we can get involved and look forward to trying to get it off the ground.
Right. How about you, Barry?
Yeah, Dan, I love your what you're up to, and applaud your connection with Steve, and over many years, I think it's a really interesting possibility, but the last thing I want to see it do is fail. So I'd like to see something happen that we start that we're really pretty sure will have Dan Plus walking away saying, yeah, this was really worthwhile.
Well, I think we're getting a lot closer than we were in the past.
Yeah.
Trust that, because they're never done. I mean, to integrate the congressman in this until now. Last but not least, Felicia, do you have anything in conclusion? Okay. Well, I want to conclude and say, thank everybody for coming on today, especially Dan and filling in for the invited guests that could make it out of New York. But and also, I want to say to Cy Lewis at Meadows Eastside Community Resource Organization, I want to wish her a happy birthday. Birthday was yesterday. We've been working with her on some initiatives, light up the night. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing some other things with an energy program with her right now. So again, Cy, happy birthday. And DeAndre, in conclusion, go ahead.
Yeah, you know what? Again, I'm all for innovation and I'm all for sustainability. And I'm glad we're having this conversation because as a potential alderman in this upcoming cycle, that's something that I've always pushed for. And I'm going to continue to push for it. So just having this conversation and knowing that there are possibilities available that other people aren't considering, it makes me happy because we need them. And if that isn't to be the case in terms of me representing the community, I want to be able to bring it to the people that will lead because we need this. So thank you, Dan, for coming on. Thank you, everybody, for just listening in and chiming in with your comments. We do this thing every Sunday from 6 to 8 p.m. There's various ways that you can interact with our show. We got the Facebook, the YouTube, and the Zoom. If you're on the Facebook or the YouTube, make sure you like because you just like us, right? Make sure you comment because if you comment, we can see it directly into the show. We can add it. That way you don't have to be live or in person. Make sure you subscribe because that keeps you in tune with what we got going on. And make sure you share so somebody else can know what we got going on. You know what I mean? This is West Side People Talking West Side Things. And this may be for the West Side, but this applies to all of the city because, man, in these African American Black communities, we are struggling. So the last thing I wanted to put back out there one more time is that I am currently working on my dissertation. I need people of African American lineage. So those could be Latinos or Latinx community. Those could be biracial. Those could be African. But as long as you identify as African American and Black, please be a part of my study. If you're between the ages of 17 and 65, please be a part of my study. If you work for a nonprofit organization that operates in Austin, the Lawndaleses, the Garfieldses, and the Humboldtses, and you live in those communities, please be a part of my study because my study is for you. That being said, listen, as I always say in closing, we have open seats at the table. All we try to do is just welcome y'all home. Thank y'all for allowing us to welcome you to Northwest Austin Council.
So, good night,
Have a good night.
all. Take it easy.
Good night. God bless everybody.
Yeah.